All right, so we've been talking about the different phases of the cell cycle. We've talked about interphase, how that was kind of the first one where the cell is doing all of its growing, and we also talked about the mitotic phase. So we're just going to keep going with that. This is just a review for you. So kind of doing what we did in class already, we kind of broke this into a pie chart, like so. And what you saw was 3 phases of interphase in here. So all my red is going to be interphase. The first stage we talked about in interphase was going to be that G1 phase. And all we said there was that there's going to be a lot of growth occurring, the cell's getting bigger, and it's still performing its cell function. The second stage was that S phase. We said in the S phase that what you're going to find is this is where our DNA starts to replicate. An important step. And remember, replicates just means makes a copy of. The last one was that G2 stage. So we see more growth there, but you're also going to see the organelles replicating to get ready for the cell division. So remember, interphase is just getting the cell ready for cell division. And then we go into our second phase here, which is the mitotic phase, we said. That's going to be where we end up getting, or starting to see the cell's genome, so its DNA start to divide, and as well as the actual cell itself. So that's going to be just this small sliver of the pie here again. Remember that. And then we broke the mitotic phase into 5 different phases. You had the prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. We called those 4. When you look at those 4 together, we said this was mitosis. That's where we're seeing the DNA really get moved around the cell as it prepares to divide. And the last stage was cytokinesis. And that's where the cell actually divides. You see the cytoplasm pinch off and split, and now we have those 2 daughter cells. So remember, looking at these, you had, we'll kind of color it in here. You have mitosis going on right there, and then you had your cytokinesis occurring right in this area here. But mitotics would be all of that green that we talked about right away. Mitotic phase includes all of that. Anytime there is that division going on. So we'll jump right to prophase. It's kind of the, or it is the first stage of mitosis. What we saw there was, as we said earlier, the cell the cell nucleus disappears, and we get these sister chromatids kind of just floating around. And I'll show them as kind of like those bent X's a little bit. We'll have a couple blues and a couple reds here. And what I just drew is a chromosome. Now remember, we talked about this a while ago. Chromosome consists of, I don't think a banana split looking deal here. Chromosome has 2, and we call those 2 right here. We got 1 and 2. These are identical. They're the sister chromatids, and they're connected by a centromere. So these sister chromatids, you have your centromere, and this whole structure is your chromosome. So getting back to prophase now, what you see is these chromosomes are just kind of in the cytoplasm. There's no nucleus to kind of keep them there. What you will start to see too is, I'll draw them in green, our centrioles are going to start making those spindle fibers, which you will see later will do all the moving around in the cell. So this is, we just said prophase. Next stage, this is going to be known as what we called it metaphase. Remember meta down there, kind of meet in the middle. Kind of alliteration there to keep you remembering those. What happens here? That these chromosomes kind of lining up against or along the equator, we call this area, and your spindle fibers are doing more work. They attach to the centromere of each chromosome. And they're kind of getting ready for to split them apart or to pull them apart, which brings us to our next one, and that is anaphase. Anaphase, remember our alliteration again? You look at the ana, away, or apart. If you're struggling to remember that, just remember those letters again. And in this phase, what you see was now our sister chromatids, our chromosomes here have been split apart, and our sister chromatids are going away from each other towards kind of the opposite ends of the cell. Centrioles here. So those spindle fibers are shortening. They're pulling the sister chromatids away from each other, and we are starting to get closer to having two new nuclei at this point. The fifth one is known as telophase, and let's see. I draw this a little different here. Your book shows it, and I'm going to kind of draw it like how they represent it. And it's starting to get a pinching off effect going on in the cytoplasm area. Now we're not fully dividing it. This is still part of just mitosis, so we're kind of just focusing more on the genome or the DNA. But we have those sister chromatids that were split apart. In kind of the new looking cells that are about to form here. Another thing that happens now is we're starting to see the formation of a nucleus again. So it's going to kind of keep all that genetic information safe and in the same spot. That's the most obvious part about telophase. So telophase, the big thing is you have two new nuclei showing up, each with your original amount of chromatids that you started with. And the last one, and we'll get rid of this again. Now this is not part of mitosis, but it's kind of confusing here. It's part of the mitotic phase, but it's not part of mitosis. And this is where you will end up getting what we refer to as our new daughter cells. And they do have a fully formed nucleus in these guys now. So this is here cytokinesis. So you have one daughter cell and you have a second. Both are supposed to be, these should be genetically identical. Every once in a while an error occurs, but for the most part, these are always genetically identical. This is a form of asexual reproduction, which means basically that only one parent was needed, or one parent cell in this case, and you will have genetic copies of each other.